2024 here in the House chamber. And before we proceed, I'd like to introduce the members of the committee. To my left, we have the Vice Chairman, Representative Blas Jonathan Atto. And to my bottom left, we have Representative Diego Camacho. To his left, we have Representative Marissa Flores. And to my right, we have Senator Karina Magovnia. To her right, we have the chairman of the SNILD Delegation, Representative John Paul Sablan. And to his right, we have another member of the committee, Representative Angelo Camacho. And then across him, we have a non-member, an honorary member, Representative Vince Cobriel Dunn. And then our LB staff, we have Mr. Joe Hallahan, counsel, and our two legislative assistants, Ms. Clarissa Sublan and Mr. Cameron Nicholas, and our Sergeant at Arms, Mr. Pete Dwyer. And I'd like to welcome you all. Thank you, Zoning and Cannabis Commission, for being present in today's committee meeting. And with that said, we do have the necessary quorum to conduct today's committee meeting. And is there a motion to adopt today's agenda? There's a motion to adopt today's agenda, and it has been seconded. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. The agenda is hereby adopted. And then in our next order of business under our agenda, we have public comments, and the podium is now open for public comments. And please state your name for the record. Thank you. Members, as agreed before our meeting began, maybe we should have a motion so that we can dissolve into committee of the whole. Okay, there's a motion to dissolve into committee of the whole and has been seconded. All those in favor say aye. Opposed say nay. We're now under committee of the whole. So, Sarge, can you please escort the zoning office and the cannabis commission? And the zoning board. My apologies. Okay, before we proceed any further, can I maybe have you guys introduce yourselves to the committee? Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. SNILD, thank you for having us, Cannabis Commission. My name is Joseph Rios. I'm the treasurer for the Cannabis Commission.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Natasha Palacios, and I am the executive secretary at the Cannabis Commission.
Good morning, members. Good to see you all here today, and to our zoning partners here. My name is Wanigo, the commissioner for the Cannabis Commission.
Good morning. My name is Steve Zhang. I am on the zoning board.
Good morning, SNILD committee members. My name is Hubert Alipuyo. I'm here as acting administrator. Thank you all for having us here.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Walter Zacharias, and I'm the permit manager for zoning. Thank you.
Thank you. And under our first item under our old business, we have House Local Bill 2345, entitled "To Allow for Cannabis Manufacturing and Processing for Conditional Use Within Certain Zoning Districts," which has met the required provision of 1 CMC Section 1403 as amended. I'd like to maybe have the author of the legislation give some background. Maybe we can dialogue with the officers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This piece of legislation came about from the zoning office and the zoning board. This proposed legislation was voted and support it together in working relationship with the Cannabis Commission as well. So it proposes to rezone and for use of conditional use on zoning districts. So as I mentioned on our last meeting, I like to allow the committee members to express their concern on this proposed legislation. And before us, we have the zoning board member, the zoning acting administrator, and of course, the Cannabis Commission before us. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield.
Thank you, Chairman Soblan. The floor is open if you guys would like. We're under committee of the whole, so please feel free to dialogue with the committee members. Recognize Representative Kamatsu.
Thank you, Chairman. And good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. This is to the Cannabis Commission. Is there currently a moratorium in place for cannabis manufacturing and processing?
No, negative. The only moratorium is in place is a cannabis producer.
Okay. Are there any potential licensees currently awaiting zoning clearance or permit for in their application, in the application process?
I believe right now we have one potential application for another cannabis processor. That's good. We have one. Yes, only one right now at our office for cannabis processor.
Would you know if this is one of their, I guess, barriers in completing the application process?
It's no lie. There's always been barriers within the permitting agencies. However, we choose to entertain each applicant based on based on what the rules and regulations allow the Cannabis Commission members to do. All we can do is just give advice on how to proceed or where to proceed to, but it's more of a business choice on for them where to go next after the Cannabis Commission. We do have processes in our applications that they need to submit some zoning clearances prior to entertainment from the board. But we know that it's been an issue regarding the cannabis processor because the use was not put in when the zoning law was amended in 2018. That's all I have for now.
Right. Thank you, Chair. To any of the zoning members, is there any pending application from any cannabis licensee in regards to manufacturing?
As of today, we do not have any pending, but we will be bringing one establishment into compliance by obtaining this permit from our office once the SNILD committee agrees to accept this amendment to the text to include the manufacturing and processing use under cannabis. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. I yield at this time, Chair.
Thank you, Representative Kamatsu. Senator Magofia.
Thank you, Chairman. And this question is directed to the zoning. We didn't receive any comments from zoning pertaining to this bill, so I would like to hear what zoning has to, what feedback or comments zoning may have regarding House Local Bill 23-45. Thank you.
We're in support, ma'am. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Any additional comments or just you're in support?
With the growing industry and the absence of this use, our office would like to ask this SNILD committee to consider this proposed amendments to the text to include so that the cannabis industries can continue to grow and to also offer interested entrepreneurs, to to obtain and go through the proper licensing from the zoning office in order to complete other prerequisite requirements for the Cannabis Commission and other agencies, regulating and permitting government agencies. So with that said, we would like to ask this now committee to consider approving.
Thank you very much for your comments, and we appreciate the support that you have for the cannabis industry. Thank you. Chair, I yield.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Magofnia. I recognize Mr. Rios.
Thank you for that, Chair. I understand the collaboration between zoning and cannabis had taken place prior to this meeting. However, I wasn't there at the time, and I don't believe I made any suggestions, comments, or recommendations. I do see the significance in zoning being an integral part in the cannabis industry. However, in my opinion, I would like to better understand and better utilize this position, because we're a budding industry. And as a budding industry, we got to understand what's our potential before we start limiting our potential. Yes, I see the financial aspects to it. And yes, we are a regulatory body, but we also got to make sure that we got to balance the two. Because if you look at it right now, if you look at the bill that's being presented, it's already identifying, it's already categorizing, segregating a certain area where cannabis can thrive. We want to understand that our land is very scarce. And if we're going to define a producer and a manufacturer, to me, when I got on board, I see it's one of the same: producer, manufacturer. So if you're producing, you're manufacturing, then obviously you're a cultivator. So a cultivation, you need farming. Our island is very small, scarcity of land. You got to realize that if we are to engage in the scalability of exportation in the future and take that advantage of increasing our revenue here, because we can only make so money in licensing. What happens after that is our licensees are the one that's going to be generating that BGR. So to make the story short, I think we should better step back, look at it, and better understand and define and detail this out. Because if you look at the producer, most of the time when they harvest the product, they're going to process it probably right in there in that vicinity and not necessarily move it from one location to the next. So we also got to realize that. Just think about our limited scarcity of land and how we can manage it to make it work. We're not just going to make money just for the licensees that we give. That's ridiculous. We can only give so much. Everybody knows that. Our population size can only give or provide that much people. What we need to understand is how we can better utilize that so that our licensees make the money from outside of our islands. That's all I can say. That's it. Just give it time and let's look at it, better understand it before we really put a vote to it and put it on paper.
Before I recognize you, Senator, can I recognize all the members for the first time? Recognize Representative Flores.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Commissioner or Treasurer Rios, for your statement. I agree with you that there are other areas that we need to improve on, but to allow for cannabis manufacturing and processing for conditional use within certain zoning districts is something that I don't support right now. I look at cannabis the same way I see poker. And I think you mentioned that when you were at the Senate when you were being nominated for your position. And let's go back to understand what maybe this might happen, because when poker was zoned in particular areas, it was great. The money was great, everything. We were supporting Shefa, we made CJPA, we did all these wonderful things, okay? Then we said we want to rezone it. Then it appeared in certain areas, in the district, in the village, all of this stuff. So when I'm looking at particular villages, right, and based on your rezoning map, and I don't know if you guys had, the zoning board had republished your map, but the map that I have, that's a big brown area of zoning availability for this particular jurisdiction, right? So when I'm thinking about that, I'm looking at certain villages that are highly marginalized with drug use and crime, okay? So while we want to redistrict all of this, you're correct. A retailer can also process at the same time. He can have his manufacturing business and he can process and do all of these things. So when we open this up, the floodgate now, what's going to happen is it's oversaturated. We cannot control now the requirements. We cannot enforce anything because number one, we don't have enough people. We don't have enough resources. The same situation that we're seeing right now. So for me, I'd rather protect what we have and allow the commission to concentrate on other things like collection of data, a lab. Because the product that we're pushing out right now are not even tested product. And that's a very thin line we're crossing. So there's more to this than just rezoning and allowing this floodgate to open. So I do agree with you that there's other areas that we could obviously work on, but to allow this to take place and rezone and allow zoning to now support this in other districts, whatever their map claims is a rezoning area, I wholeheartedly disagree and I do not support the passage of this particular bill because, like I said, I see it like poker. It's going to be so saturated that we don't even know what to do with it. And then what's going to happen? We're going to lose certain market, and then Guam's probably looking at us, waiting for us to fail. And the moment we fail, they're going to capitalize on that. And then we're on the back again of the line once again. And let's not remind this body that we're behind on tourism, we're behind on all the other things. This is the only one new thing we have going for us. And if we don't get it right the first time, we're not going to get it right ever until another 10, 15 years. And by that time, everything's changed, the world's changed, the way cannabis is being produced and manufactured changed, and we're going to be left behind again. Second is, if you look at the casino, okay, I don't know what happened there, but we have 888 now, but right across it is the Head Start program. You've got this monstrosity of a casino that sits in my precinct, and right across that is Garapan School. So tell me, who messed up there? Because if we're going to do this once again, something is going to happen down the line. I will not support this bill, and I'm sorry that zoning supports it. I don't know how your board feels about that, but I would have to agree with Mr. Rios at this time. There are other areas that we can improve on. As far as rezoning this, definitely not for me, but for the Cannabis Commission, until the federal government reduces and reclassifies marijuana as a non-federal kind of drug on its list, then maybe. But right now, I highly doubt that this is a good time for this. I think the commission should concentrate on other things like collection of data, putting in more moratoriums, and a lab. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield.
Thank you, Representative Flores. Senator Mogofia.
Thank you, Chairman. This question is directed to the Cannabis Commission, Commissioner Rios. You made a very general statement there, and I would like for you to clarify just exactly what your statement is. First of all, I would like to know if the Cannabis Commission is in support of this bill. And second, the statement that you made is very general, so I'd like to hear more specifics as to what you're referring to. Thank you.
Recognize Mr. Rios.
Thank you very much for that question, Senator Magofnia. I appreciate you wanting for me to elaborate on my position. Like I mentioned earlier, there was a collaboration, obviously, I heard that had occurred between zoning and the commission. So I believe just by implication or assumption or presumption or presupposition, whatever the case may be, there's already an agreement that had occurred. I'm just stating the fact on my position as a commissioner that I do believe that we should hold off until we better see the position and the landscape that we're at. Typically, that's how things fell, as Representative Flores just mentioned, is that sometimes we rush, and when we rush too fast, that's where we stumble. I mean, to a point, I agree, because then we see the little obstacles and our challenges along our road to success. But at the same time, too, we got to understand that we can minimize those barriers and those challenges by just better utilizing our greatest asset, which is our brain cells. I'm just stating from my position and my opinion is that this thing in itself, I understand that we don't want it to be like a poker, as a representative pointed out. Yes, I don't agree with the retail establishment in every village, in every community, or whatever the situation is, or next to schools. I do not support a retail establishment or dispensary in that area. However, we're talking about processing, and we're talking about cultivation, manufacturing. If you're talking about cultivation and manufacturing and processing, that requires land. How much land do we have? We can only fit so much stuff in our little 35 by 24 square miles of land. I mean, unless we build artificial lands, then okay. That's something that that's something now that we can, agree upon. But if you're saying that this is all we have, then we got to see how we can better utilize it. If we want to grow an industry, we got to make sure that we support it and make sure that we see the ultimate objective, and that's its success. Otherwise, why are we doing this? Otherwise, why am I getting paid? Why any of us are getting paid? We're just getting paid to sit on the table and, take the position and love the title. And no, we're here, we're now. Let's see whether we can utilize our position and make sure that what we do doesn't negative affect the people that comes in after us. That's all I'm saying. I'm not trying to debate, argue, or put any, negative position in this situation. If there was already an agreement between the cannabis and zoning, I am not here to argue against it. I'm here to just state my claim and just say I'm only one of the commissioner that just wants to, wait, and let's really look at it carefully. Let's study. Let's look at our amount of land that we can provide for these processors. And if the future does come, because we can only make so much on our licensees, we can only license so much. Ultimately, we're gonna have to keep putting moratorium. Yeah, we'll increase our prices for the license. Yeah, sure, why not? That's another avenue, but for how much and for how long? Pretty soon it'll be unreasonable. What we want to do is we want to see if we can capitalize. There's a pending legislation, hopefully DEA, whatnot, the US decides to reschedule this product. And if that so occurs, then, that's there. That's something that's pending that we're looking forward to. We're being proactive and not reactive. That's something that we want to put in back of our pockets, and that make sure that whoever we do give this license to can reach into that opportunity and make the best and most of it. And if export is in the future for CNMI to gain that extra money from foreigners, then hey, why not? My position is a regulator. We regulate, but I'm also in that position too. Is how we can generate to that money for the cinema and for our people. Other than that, thank you very much for hearing me out. I
Thank you, Mr.
appreciate it.
Reyes. You still have the floor, Senator.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Commissioner Reeves, for your response. To that point, you do bring up that there is scarcity of land, right? So if that's the case, I mean, how much land do we have to offer to help grow the industry? The land is scarce, so by opening up, certain areas of the island, I would think that would help the cannabis industry grow. But let me ask both zoning and the Cannabis Commission, in your discussions and agreements to, for the rezoning, did you guys include DPL in your conversations? Because DPL is supposed to have a comprehensive land use plan that knows what the landscape is as far as, here, actually in all three islands. And so in your discussions between the two of you, did you care to check with DPL what land is available and how you guys can better utilize the remaining lands that we have to offer or use?
Thank you for that question, Representative Magofnia. So, the Department of Public Lands only manages public lands. They do have a map that's available online that we use as a resource tool, but that map is only utilized to review agricultural zone areas, which is identified on the updated zoning map that was just uploaded about 2 weeks ago on our website. Uh, and just to clarify, this House Local Bill 23-45, it's not to rezone. It's to allow the use in rural, village commercial, mixed commercial, and industrial zone areas. This bill is not to rezone.
Thank you for that clarification. Yes, you're right. It's for conditional use. And I throw public land DPL out because a big chunk of our land, right, is still with DPL. But so what other sources or data did you guys use as far as private properties to determine, just to get an idea as far as gathering data, right? And so you get the public land and the private land. Did you guys use both, or what sources did you guys use to come about with your decision?
Yeah. So both sources have been utilized, and it had been, the zoning office had put a lot of planning into it before these districts were actually laid out in 2007, I believe. And yes, Commissioner Rios is right. Our lands is very scarce, very limited. You can only use so much, or even be allowed for whatever development or use, you're trying to establish. And but I do also like to, inform you all that there is a 300 feet setback, that every cannabis applicant, has to ensure that they meet from every playground, public, private schools, daycare, church, adult gambling businesses. Uh, those are other provisions that they have to meet in order for them to be actually allowed to establish at their proposed locations.
Thank you. Just one last question. So given that, right, given the concerns that are brought forth, and I know that, whatever the consensus is between the committee members, we're going to act on the bill. Would you um, recommend the committee to move forward with this bill at this time, or hold off until such data are gathered and better planning and decision is made.
I would like to respectfully ask this committee, SNILD committee, to vote in favor and move forward with this bill. Yeah.
Um, Before I recognize you, Rep. Flores, can I recognize the chairman of the SNIL?
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you, Chairman. And this question is to the zoning office and the board, just so that the members understand, right, that the proposed legislation is to allow for conditional use. Even if we approve this measure or proposed legislation, it still needs the blessing of the zoning board, whether we allow it in whatever areas stated in the proposed legislation. But if it's not voted by the zoning board, it doesn't go. Can you verify if that's correct?
So if this SNILD committee approves of it, yes, you're correct, Representative JP. It still needs the zoning board approval.
Right. And I wanted to state that for the record. And I know that the proposed legislation, which came from the zoning office and supported by the zoning board proposes on only four areas, which is the rural, village commercial, mixed commercial, and industrial area district. And that is why we have this kind of proceedings, right, as in the zoning committee, because perhaps maybe the committee members agree only on rural and industrial and not on village commercial and mixed commercial. That's something that the committee can digest and perhaps deliberate on. But right now, that's why we're having this proceeding so that we can have this open discussion and understanding. Because so that brings me up to my next question. Since village commercial and mixed commercials are part of what the proposed legislation is asking to for conditional use, so within the village commercial areas, do you guys feel that there are land masses that we can perhaps find, and that is to include in mixed commercial as well? Because maybe perhaps some of them, most of the members would agree on rural and industrial areas, because most of these areas are, away from residency and all that, right? But with village commercial and mixed commercial, we see that there's some residents within these zoning areas. So perhaps when you guys deliberate and send this proposed legislation over to the legislature, was there any assessment of land masses within village commercial and mixed commercial that are potential? And my second question was there any public hearing conducted before you guys decide on this?
So, the zoning office did held a public hearing, and this proposed recommendation by the zoning administrator to the board, uh, it was discussed in a public meeting and was later voted and approved by the board on January 4th of this year. Yeah, and to align with the farm use, it the manufacturing and processing was recommended that it was to be allowed as conditional use in areas that cannabis farms are allowed as conditional use, with the addition of adding in industrial zone areas. Yeah.
So my question, I guess, to you would be, because you're including the zoning board included village commercial and mixed commercial. So can you just walk us through what areas in Saipan or that are village commercial and mixed commercial that are potential for this conditional use? Can you walk us through
Yeah.
what villages or what areas did the zoning did their assessment?
Sure. Sure. So On the flat screen TV, you see the Saipan zoning map. This is the updated zoning map. So the areas that are highlighted in orange, those are zoned as village commercials. And these village commercials are primarily along the thoroughfares or main roads. The areas that are highlighted in red are zoned as the mixed commercial. And these areas at one point were majority village commercials, but through several rezones to allow the adult gambling businesses to still remain in business, the zoning map had been amended. Therefore, we see a lot of red stripes. The areas highlighted in Tuscan dusk or gr- light brown or khaki, if you may, those are zoned as rural. These make up majority of the landscape for the island of Saipan. And the areas colored in purple are zoned as industrial, which is we don't really have that much, and they're pretty tucked away from residential areas. So those are the four districts that the zoning board recommended to allow the cannabis manufacturing and processing within.
So, which leads me to my last question, because the zoning office knows that uh, the adult gambling are mostly on mixed commercial, and that we have limited. If you look at that map, all the red colored areas are the mixed commercial, and most of these areas have adult gambling facilities, and therefore did the zoning office assess the 300 feet away from because even in the mixed commercial, some of uh, other facilities are there, like the church, the schools are some of them are within the mixed commercial. So my question is, with regards to the standing statute of the 300 feet away, was that assessed by the zoning office before inserting the mixed commercial into this proposed conditional use?
Yes, Representative Sablon, they had been assessed, and as part of our pre-application process or prerequisite requirement before an application even gets accepted, we have this 300 feet setback verification form that the applicant has to go out and conduct their distance or setback verification based on these areas that they need to be away from. Once that form is complete, it gets submitted to our office. Then we do a second round of verification where the zoning staff goes out and conducts their own verification. So to ensure that the applicant is in compliance with the 300 feet, to answer your question, we do go out and we do another reassessment to confirm.
And to again emphasize that if they don't meet it, then the zoning won't
Yes,
approve the conditional use.
correct, sir.
Use. I yield, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Sablan. Recognize Representative Flores.
Thank you. And thank you, Rep. Sablan, for pointing that out, that the zoning board will have to approve the proposed legislation. And again, let's turn back history. That's what happened with the casino. And nobody said anything. So I don't support that. I don't believe that. I don't have enough faith to give it to the board to decide whether or not they will approve this. And I'm not saying that in terms of each individual as a member. What I'm saying is that history has reflected over and over again that somewhere where any piece of legislation needs to move and needs board approval, something happens in between. Conversation, as our treasurer said, there's some kind of an agreement somewhere nobody knows, some secret meetings no one knows about. And then when it comes down to the vote, all of a sudden, we have our faith that it's not going to go through. Then all of a sudden, something happens, and there it is. So I'm not sure why that happens, but it happens. And I just want to be very, very mindful, because I am still looking at a casino building in my district that nobody wants to take responsibility of, not even its own owner. But somewhere along the line, the zoning approved that and said it's okay to build it there. Maybe this legislation needs a little bit more tweaking, and maybe we need to remove rural mixed commercial. But looking at that map right there, that's a lot of landmass. And if they're growing it hydroponically, then they'll grow upwards and not sideways, because a lot of that is private property, correct? Majority of that would be private property, right?
Correct.
Okay. So that means somebody there would have a really nice business. I don't know who, but apparently you have one that's waiting for this piece of legislation to pass for approval. Rep. Sablan brought out a good point about knowing the districts and what areas would be best with the 300 mile rate or 300 feet radius or the zone. You have that? You guys have done that study already?
Yes,
Okay.
Representative.
And then the public hearing that you guys had, it was on what year, what month and year again?
January of this year.
Okay, and you guys have you guys submitted that for any kind of knowledge to the legislative body or the commission?
It was publicly announced. It was publicly announced. I believe it was also published. The agenda was published on our website.
Right, but the minutes and the action taken from that particular meeting, has it been published anywhere? Do you guys have that document anywhere where we can get a hold of that?
We do have the document, but to answer your question on whether it was published, it's not published, but we can provide it, upon your request. It's no problem.
Well, I think for me, what I would like to know is what the public interests were, that data. What did they say regarding this particular?
Thank you, Congresswoman. So I think the purpose of this is just to fill in the gap. Right now, we do have cannabis retail, cannabis farm, lounge under the table of uses in the zoning law. What we don't have is this use, which the Cannabis Commission has, and they're currently giving license for this kind of use. And so how this all started was we had an applicant come into the office and was trying to get a zoning permit or clearance because they needed it to get their business license. The zoning office wasn't able to give a clearance or a permit because we don't have this specific use, right? And so at the request of the Cannabis Commission, staff also recommended to the board to allow this use under the table of uses
Okay.
so that we can assist applicants coming in, right? Can give them a permit
Okay.
for this specific use.
All right. So let's go up north. Northern Islands. Would this be part of rural commercial or whatever? If we were going to take Northern Islands as one place, Okay, because it's all crazy over there in the map. Would you guys be able to give a license for manufacturing and processing up in that area?
So zoning only applies to the Saipan,
Okay.
not
All right,
Rhoda,
so-
not Tinian, not
Well, if we do this, then it would apply depending on their delegation, correct? They can make the
Yes.
amendments on their delegation
if they choose
if
to
they
have
choose
zoning.
to.
Yes.
But we need this first. Wait. I mean,
No.
I'm not saying that we need this first. What I'm saying is this would have to pass. Then they can make some modification to support this particular, or no, this is just local for us, correct?
If they choose to
Okay.
have zoning.
All right. I'm getting to where I need to go. So I totally believe that right now you have retailers that are also producers, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So take me through this process. So they needed the manufacturing. Okay. I'm an ignorant person. I don't know what a manufacturer for cannabis does. Take me down this process. What do they do?
Thank you for that question. It's great to clarify for on the zoning end, it's called manufacturing and processing.
Mhm.
On cannabis end, it's just called cannabis processing.
Mhm.
So right now, what they can do is basically turn their solid products into what you call it, like oils or soaps, those kind of things. Right now, the law allows for processing for edibles, but absent that we don't have a lab, no one can process for edibles. So basically, a lot of our processors are requesting for either dab oils or for infused coconut oil. Yeah, products.
So an individual person growing 6 trees can be a part of this too?
No, you have to be a licensed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So if this goes through, and this is my last question, Chairman. Right now, we know of some businesses that grow outside their area. They package in one area and bring it down to the retail. Am I right?
Correct.
Okay. So if we're going to take Treasurer Ria's scenario on land mass and open it up on just this brown section here, okay, how much area would that consist of? What is reasonable?
Thank you for that question. And I've been meaning to raise my hand to clarify some of these issues that are coming up. Manufacturing and processing for zoning, cannabis processing for the Cannabis Commission. It doesn't require a licensee to occupy even a 9,000 to build a 9,000 square meter lab. If you guys uh, have seen some of these licensees establishments, even just a simple cannabis processor establishment is done in a 20 by 40 container. It does not require a 4,000, 5,000 square meter property. And, it's just done within like a household type of kitchen area. All day, it's not a large scale production. That's what I can also assure you guys. It does not require, for sure, large land mass production scale.
Okay, so this then would allow producers who don't sell their product, assuming they have leftover product, because we don't even know what we do with the leftover product they cannot sell, right? So would this person now, a licensee, legit licensee, now turn around and sell it to somewhere around this area here so they can extract and manufacture?
That's their business decision. They are able to sell within to the retailers as a producer.
Mhm.
If they have remaining products and they want to sell it to a retailer or processor, they are able to do that for them to convert it into oil or things that the Cannabis Commission would allow for.
Okay, I think I'm just gonna let that marinate in my head real quick to understand this whole process, because there's a lot of moving parts before we get to this. So I'm just gonna yield my time right now, and I'm gonna think about all those moving parts, because I think I've already kind of made my decision that I'm not gonna support this local bill. I would like to see some amendments made. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield.
Thank you, Rep. Flores. I recognize Mr. Alpuzo.
So, if I may, since we're talking about a lot of these brown areas, on our landscape, Saipan, so those are in the rural zoning district, which are the brown khaki areas. So the use will only be allowed if the property or the lot is at 4,000 square meters. So that's another setbacks, for these interested applicants, wanting to do the use. And this also applies to other cannabis use. The 4,000 square meters is always an issue with securing properties or even establishing a cannabis use. So aside from the 300 feet and the 500 feet that cannabis has to make sure that these applicants meet, we also have zoning also has that 4,000 square meters minimum area that they have to meet. So that's another setback, just to let it marinate in.
Can I respond?
Um, Go ahead.
Okay, and thank you for allowing me a little bit more base into the marinade in which I'm going to now consume in my head. I appreciate that. Um, Again, Mr. Alapuzzo, I think there is more work and study to be done on both ends. I'm glad that your board commissioner or Mr. Jang is here to kind of marinate all of this information too, because he has a responsibility that's entrusted upon him, that whatever decisions he makes as an individual person supports the best interests of the Commonwealth. So, yes, you're correct. That's another barrier. But I think there's more to this that we can improve on. And I think, as Mr. Rios said, what is the rush? We've got other areas to worry about right now. And I'll wait for this January 24 meeting minutes. I'd like to see the action taken on that, or at least what the public wanted based on their concern. Thank you. I yield my time.
Thank you, Representative Flores. Members, in the interest of time, we still have two legislation before us, and Senate Local Bill 23-03 is going to take up some extensive time. So, going to limit the questions to one more question per member. And before that, Mr. Rios.
Just real quick again to reiterate what I've been trying to put out there is that I understand there's limitations to everything that we do and what we're supposed to do. At the end of the day, we want to make sure that the limitation works for us. That's all. We want to make sure that it works for us and for the future of our CNMI. And if we do plan to grow this industry, I think we should be a little bit open-minded. As Mr. Alapuzzo just mentioned, that's another 4,000 in addition to what the chair said about the requirements of the size of the square meters that is allowable at this point. That's news to me, and I would like to sit down, have the opportunity to really sit down with the zoning board and see what exactly is feasible for an industry to grow here, especially a marijuana industry. If this is what we put our foot in and we decide to move forward, we should do it responsibly, and we should understand intimately that what we can and what we cannot do. Because at the end of the day, a lot of countries, a lot of governments are making a lot of money pushing their products out. There's no secret to the magic of making money and the growth of GDP and our BGR and all that good stuff. But at the same time, too, well, if we're going to push this out today, I respectfully disagree and hold back on it. And thank you for everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Rios. I recognize Senator Magofia.
Thank you, Chair, and I understand, the time that we have. It's just I have more than one question, follow-up questions, and if I may, I'll try to run through it real quick. So just some follow-up questions to zoning. So, you stated earlier that there a public hearing conducted, or this was a meeting that was open to the public? Because there's two distinct meanings.
It was a meeting open to the public.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a public hearing that the public was invited to hear what what the proposed legislation was going to be, and take some comments from the public, right? Because I think that's where Rep. Flores is going with this, right? If there was a public hearing that was conducted, then there must have been minutes. There has to be some kind of a sign-in sheet that shows how many people showed up, what were some of the concerns that were raised by the public, what were the outcomes, what were the action items, things of that nature when a public hearing is conducted.
So I take it back, Representative Magonia. It was a zoning public hearing. It was announced. There are minutes. There are sign-in sheets at the multi-purpose main entry and exit. It was a public hearing.
Okay, so it was a public hearing, and do you happen to know the number of attendants that show up from the public?
We don't have the information right now, but
So
if you would give us
whether-
time today,
Okay.
before the end of the
So there
business
were
day.
attendants that showed up.
Yes.
And what would you say the consensus of that public hearing from the public?
I would have to have Mr. Zacharias answer that question, because during that time of the scheduled meeting, I was on leave.
Okay.
I was off island.
Okay.
So I don't see anything wrong with adding this use. If we want to limit the
Actually, that's not
licensing
my
for-
question. My question was, what was the consensus during the public hearing when the people showed up?
Okay, so I don't recall any concerns from the public.
No
when this was
concerns
heard.
were okay.
Not to my
And how many public hearings were conducted?
just one.
Just one.
Yes.
Okay. Like Representative Flores, I would like to see, the minutes from that meeting, just so that we can have a better understanding of what was discussed, what were the action items, and I would like to see what the public comments were from the public during the public comment portion.
Sure.
And again, you guys talked about, if this bill passes, it would still have to go through the zoning board, right, for approval. My question is, since you're here in support of this bill, what do you know what the zoning board, what their stance is on this particular legislation?
Thank you for the question. So this came before the board. Staff had recommended
Okay.
to include cannabis manufacturing processing into the table of uses.
So would
And
you say then that the board is already in support of this legislation?
yes, through board resolution 23-12-02A,
Okay.
it was voted in favor
Okay.
by
Got
the
it.
board.
And then, so who initiated this? Was it the Cannabis Commission or zoning?
So sometime last year, Cannabis Commission, Commissioner Juan Igua was attending one of our public hearings and brought out this concern to the board,
Okay.
and we collaborated, and staff presented to the board staff recommendation to include this specific use into the table of uses, which the board approved through board resolution 23-12.
Okay. So the question was, who initiated? Was it Commissioner, the Cannabis, or zoning for the introduction of this legislation?
Cannabis Commission and applicants
Okay.
also.
So Commissioner, would you concur with that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Next, so there's this mention of 4,000 square meters, and I'm curious, like who comes up with this measurement, and what is the rationale behind it? Like, how
So
did you come up with 4,000?
it's not that we came up with it, but with the current zoning law,
Okay, so it's an existing law?
yeah.
Okay.
So every zoning district, there is a bulk area assigned or is that makes up the requirement for the district area, and that also goes with the width, the length of the lots.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Two more question, I promise. So the assessment was done when?
So these assessments are prerequisite requirements where if the applicant comes in and they submit their land documents, yeah, that's always a requirement in validating ownership and legal interest of the applicant. So that document indicates the area in square
I
meters.
guess let me be more specific with my question. So, we see the map up there,
Mhm.
and I know zoning said earlier that they've conducted their own assessment as to what's available
Mhm.
for landmass and stuff like that. So I guess my question is, when was the assessment done?
So as every property owner, when a subdivision is done, the area is always identified when these subdivisions are done by the surveyors. So those informations are then recorded at
Mhm.
the lands and registry. That's our area. That's our way of validating
Okay.
the 4,000 or whatever the area is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how old is this map?
Uh,
I,
how old is that
yeah,
map?
because you said this is the most current map. So how old is it?
Uh,
When was it last updated?
you can scroll up. There's a date, updated date that I titled it.
Oh, okay, so okay, so it's
Yeah,
fairly recent.
correct.
Okay, and then last question is, oh my gosh, I just lost my train of thought. Oh, so we talked about the manufacturers, I guess creating products from extracts, right? So I know that absent the lab, the edibles are not up for discussion at this time. Even with the oils, though, like absent the lab, what safety measures are in place to ensure that these products that are going to be pushed out are safe for our consumers? Since there's
So
no testing on what the actual ingredients are and stuff like that.
yeah, so that question is more to be directed to the Cannabis
Oh,
Commission.
okay. Cannabis.
Thank you for that question. Anyways, besides approving any standard operating procedures that a licensee would have, we've also included BEH into our regulations for them to be assessing the area for cleanliness and whatnot. But as far as non-edible products, we have no laboratory for it. I guess we can't
So
do
there's
anything
nothing
but
in place to ensure the safety of our consumers.
correct. So there are regulations in place that requires every licensee to place labels on a product that it has not been tested. But what's that? It's just something that the locals produce that we know how to make coconut oil, infuse it with cannabis. That's just one way of us trying to sustain the processor license besides edibles.
I just want to make sure that we got that on record so that if there are any issues that come about in the future, that, it's not that we didn't ask these questions, but
Of course, thank you.
yes, thank
And
you.
that's a great
Commissioner.
question.
Thank you. I yield, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Recognized, Chairman.
Just thank you, Chairman. Just a point of clarification, and this is just a question to zoning. So because many of the members are repeatedly have discussed about public hearings. So correct me if I'm wrong, acting administrator, that in the event that this delegation approves this measure and the governor signs it into law, an applicant turns his application for cannabis manufacture and processing. Zoning would then process that uh, uh, request, and that it will still undergo again a so-called public hearing. That the board would vote for this conditional use. Is that correct?
That is correct, Representative Sablon.
Okay, so and I think that's very important for the members to understand that when we talk about public hearing, there will be another public hearing on top of this use, if if it's allowed, if it's signed into law. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Chairman. Recognize Vice Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you guys for joining us this morning. Thank you, Chairman, for bringing up that question. So, in this application process, how many, I guess, potential manufacturers came into zoning to apply for a license?
So far, we've only had one or two or three as of the time this whole issue has happened. But we have one that we're gonna be bringing into compliance by obtaining this permit.
Should the bill pass?
Yes, sir.
Correct?
Yes, sir.
Because you guys are looking at the whole zoning map on Saipan, and we gotta make it very clear that the cannabis industry can only be on private properties, right? So if you're looking at like the Garapan, Western Garapan area, there's a lot of private property, especially like in the heart of Western Garapan, are connected to public lands. And what started was supposed to be a cannabis industry that's on private properties has kind of morphed into allowing the hotels now to be able to have their lounge in the hotels. And this might be counterproductive to the initial law of the cannabis industry, because it'll potentially open this up, and it'll be touching public lands in the near future. So that's my fear. And I think that the industry is very young and very new. I think if it grows too fast, we're gonna outgrow ourselves, and it's just gonna die out. It's not gonna be the industry that we anticipated it was gonna be. Because when you market stuff, you market it to the sense where people want the product. So when there's five places where you can get this product, there's a line for it. But when you have 10 places, now there's no more line, right? You get to 15 places, now nobody wants it. Then what you're essentially going to be doing is you're going to be driving the price downward. So the industry is not going to be successful. So we gotta think of these kinds of stuff. And when we start talking about industrial zoning areas, that's the port area, which is probably 90% public lands. We're opening this to a lot of stuff, and yeah, zoning's talking about you need 4,000 square meters of lot. How many lots in this specific areas have 4,000 square meters of private property that we can generally say right now?
Thank you.
Side.
Thank you for that, Representative. We don't have that information right now, but if accessing the map, though, it will tell you each parcel's area. It will tell you.
I do understand that. I totally agree with that, because at the end of the day, they're going to have to bring their map in, right? And it has to be laying on private property. And we still need to understand that zoning 300 feet doesn't apply to the cannabis 500 feet. It's still going to be 500 feet no matter how you break it down. But the 400 square meters, let's just use like Garapan as a classic example. You're not going to get 4,000 square meters in that area that's going to be vacant to allow this to happen. And Mr. Chairman of the Cannabis Commission mentioned that you can do it in containers, right? But then now, where do you go from there? Now you have a container that's in a 4,000 square meter property that's just producing. So I think if there's something that's being brought up by zoning, and I understand that the chairman said that there's still going to be another hearing for these companies or potential companies that are going to be applying for it. Once we open this up, it's for temporary usage, which means that if they close down, it can never be used again for any other purpose. Right?
So again, in regards to bulk area, every and containers, every zoning district has its own required bulk area. Forget since you mentioned Garapan Core, each Garapan Core itself has its own minimum area that the applicant has to meet or the property has to be in compliance with. Uh, it's it's just a case by case where the developer has to make sure that they meet our requirements, and the Cannabis Commission.
No, I do understand, but you had mentioned earlier in your statement that they have to meet the 4,000 square meters. That's what I'm going off of.
In the rural zoning area,
So if
rural
you
zone areas.
okay, so let's say industrial zoning districts, what would that size be for this type of a? Or even mixed village commercial.
So for agricultural areas, yeah, give me a second, Representative.
How about village commercial? Maybe that might be something easier because that's you guys touch on those areas more often.
So for village commercial area, the lot has to meet a minimum of 500 square meters. And for industrial, there's no requirement.
Okay, so you get those are existing regulations right now,
Correct, sir.
correct?
Yeah.
So you're not technically changing anything on your regulations to adapt to the industry.
No,
And so, okay.
no, sir.
So that's, I think, yeah, to allow it in a zone area. I think that's for me, I think we should consider this industry as something a little bit different because Commissioner Rios had mentioned that we're hopeful that the federal government changes the status or whatever it's a tier one right now, right?
Yeah.
And they're trying. I think that's not beneficial to us, honestly. If they change that, then this opens up to everywhere else, and trust me, we're not going to be able to compete with anybody else.
Yeah.
And Guam's got a bigger population they triple our population, so the industry is going to be more successful over there than it would be over here. Would it be good for us to market? Possibly, but we got to remember that a lot of our tourists that we receive outside of the cinema from Asia, they have different laws in Asia. If we promote the industry itself in the cinema, this might be a black eye to the cinema because it's legalized marijuana, and they go back to their country. And their position, in their eyes, they say, "Well, you probably smoked weed because you went to that island, right?" So I don't know. I mean, I'll work with you guys on this, but I'm still kind of up in the air in my position regarding rezoning for temporary usage for these areas because I think that the industry itself was legalized for the intent that the private lands are being used so that private landowners can also flourish with this industry. Once we start rezoning stuff, now you're really opening it up to everything else, and it's going to be counterproductive for the intent of the industry being successful financially or economically for any business, or even the cinema's economic growth. So we'll be that. Thank you guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vice. Before we move forward and next, oh, go ahead, Mr. Rich. But may I please address? I have a question though to Mr. Alipuzo. You made mention, Mr. Alipuzo, that with the passage of this legislation, that you would be able to bring into compliance one of the licensees or a potential licensee. I just wanted more clarification on that. What did you mean by that?
So, yes, we will. Our office will make sure that that establishment goes through the required, obtains the proper permits from our office. Yes, for
So-
cannabis manufacturing and processing.
So just to clarify, they're not in business yet.
Uh, I can't comment on that.
No, because from my understanding, the way which you phrased it, you said to bring into compliance. It almost sounds like they're already in business and they're already doing manufacturing and processing, and then now you're going to bring them into compliance, but which requires the passage of this legislation. Is that what you're referring to, or
They had temporarily ceased operations pending the passage of this bill. Yeah.
I recognize Mr. Reeves?
I just wanted to add to Representative or Vice Chair Atto's comments in regards to marijuana being just look at it as a marijuana. There's many uses to marijuana. So I just wanted to add that in there, and that in that sense, we got to start looking outside the box on how we can market that product to even the Asian countries, because if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure they got a detailed definition of their laws in regards to what is illegal and what is not illegal. You know, for instance, in Japan, if I'm not mistaken, they got THC, and then they made that illegal, but then they changed one letter and made it legal. You know, with that one letter. So let's not close our minds and hopes and dreams. This opportunity is already here on our laps. We're already engaged in this. You know, a lot of effort already has been put into creating this industry. A lot of time, energy, the people's money already been invested. Let's keep an open mind. I know we got competition with our neighboring islands, but ultimately, we're not gonna just sell it to ourselves within internally. The market has to grow and has to grow outside. Wanted to emphasize that. I wanted to point out Mr. Alapuzo saying that there appears to be already a zoning requirement for a cannabis manufacturer producer. Manufacturer processor. That already appears to me that it's already affecting our industry, and to better limit the scope of this industry is I don't know, is it a deterrent? Do we call it a deterrent, deterring our industry, putting more strict to it? You even pointed out, Vice Chair Atto, that if you look at the map, a lot of brown areas, rural areas, again, further limits. Only private ownership can do that. Then another additional limit, only 4,000 square meter. Then we got another additional limit now. It has to be zone. This one they're proposing, it has to be not only rural, but it also has to be rural commercial. So now you just limit that rural to make sure that it identifies in the category of commercial. So now you just limit it again further. I just think, I'm not saying that I'm against it, But I'm saying we got to make sure that if we do pass it, it makes sense. That's all. It makes sense. Other than that, I do see the importance of regulating this industry in both areas, the zoning and also in the cannabis. But we gotta make sure that it marries and it's a beneficial to our licensees, our prospective licensees, and it's beneficial to our people here, our residents. One more thing. Most of these, the way I look at it, most of these lands is like the place it's going to be at, like you stated, it's going to be in the private property. So just by thinking private property, most of those private property are residential areas. So, I mean, 1 + 1 is what, you know? That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rios and members. All right, Mr. Chairman, last question.
Yeah, just one more because there's a reason why this proposed legislation is before us right now. And I don't think any of the members had asked the question to zoning. So if these zoning areas are not allowed, as we speak right now, what are the zoning areas that are allowed for manufacturing and processing? So that it's clear on the table. What are because there's so many zoning areas right now. And the only zoning areas we're talking about is rural, village commercial, mixed commercial, and industrial. So are we saying that the other that are not mentioned in this proposal are allowed? Can you walk us through that?
Yeah. Thank you, Representative Sablon. Currently, the use is just not allowed in any zoning district. Yeah, this bill is to request to have the use to be allowed in those zoning districts.
So are you telling me right now that there is no company right now that is doing cannabis manufacturing processing as we speak? That question also goes to the Cannabis Commission.
Thank you for that, Chairman. As we speak, we have 2 licensees that the commission approved for processor.
What are those zoning areas that you guys approve? And
We don't.
how did you approve it if zoning is saying that none of these zoning areas are allowed?
Apparently, the licensees they did obtain a clearance from the zoning office. We do have that in our package, and we don't approve them based on the zoning district. But I believe by looking at the map, one of the licensees are in a mixed commercial zoning district.
You know what? I think we need some more explanation from the zoning acting zoning administrator, since the chairman of the commission said there's 2 actually permitted from their part. Are you aware about these 2 businesses that are conducting this kind of a business right now? And by you saying that none of the zoning areas are allowed for this such business.
So we are aware of this of these 2 establishments, and I believe clearances were given. Clearance for business license. Okay. Yeah. I take it back. There's one that just recently went through a conditional use permit process and was approved by the board. And
Absent the allow changes in the text. The board approved it absent the text, the usage schedule being amended.
the use was approved through a board resolution.
We have a short recess, Mr. Chairman.
Short recess. we were back into our committee meeting, and we were still under committee of the whole. And Mr. Eagle, you have the floor.
Uh, Thank you, Chairman. I just want to again touch up on all the comments that were made regarding the cannabis processor. Obviously, the commission is here and to support the people and our licensees. And we believe that absent this cannabis processor application at zoning, we won't be able to license any of our future license or applicants that are coming in, which we do have one applicant interested already to go forth again with their application. And in regards to a lot of the comments regarding land usage and land mass, like to just let everyone know that cannabis processing does not require land mass of 4,000 square meters or anything of that effect. And we are looking forward to working together with zoning and this committee to better our relationship with in regards to cannabis. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Eagle. And with that said, we will be moving forward in our next order for of business. And I will be calling another committee meeting to address House Local Bill 2345 with the other board members and the zoning office, maybe in a 2-week time frame. And with that said, is there a motion? Can I get a motion? Yeah. There's a motion to table House Local Bill 2345, and it has been seconded for our next committee meeting to be discussed again. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. The motion passes. House Local Bill 2345 is hereby tabled onto our next committee meeting. With that said, I'd like to thank you, commissioners, Commissioner Rios, Commissioner Eagle, and your staff. Appreciate your time here this morning. You're dismissed. We're going to move forward into our next order of business. We are still under committee of the whole. Just to remind the members that now we are going to address House Local Bill 23-46, entitled to allow for furniture stores for permitted use within certain zoning districts which has met the required provision of 1 CMC Section 1403 as amended. And with that said, I'm going to allow the author of the bill to maybe give us some more background on this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you again, Chairman. And just for the members' information, this proposed legislation also came from the zoning office and was approved by the zoning board. And all this proposed legislation is actually trying to do is to allow furniture stores for permitted use within village commercial, mixed commercial, industrial, Garpan Core, Garpan East, and Beach Road zoning districts. And this is, again, to make clarification to the members that this is not a rezoning, it's just to permit it in the permitted schedule. Well, schedule is what we call it in the zoning law. Thank you. Ayu.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The floor is open. Maybe we can recognize Representative Komatsu.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe in our last discussion with regards to this particular House Local Bill, it was mentioned that, we need to maybe perhaps put a language where certain areas of the, district to allow new furnitures and not used. So I just wanted to bring that up in case, we failed to mention. But now that we have zoning here, and I wanted to hear their thoughts on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Komatsu. And Cam and Council, can you please take note of that? That was discussed in our last committee meeting. And you have the floor, zoning.
Thank you, Representative Komatsu. Again, we are here again to ask this now committee for its blessings and approval for House Local Bill 23-46, which is to amend the Saipan zoning law table of use to include furniture use in the following zoning districts of village commercial, mixed commercial, industrial, Garpan Core, Garpan East, and Beach Road zoned areas. the use is currently absent right now in the zoning law, but our office had been closely classifying them under retail sales, like which the definition kind of meets the use. So would it, our office made a recommendation to the board to create this use just so that it uh, clears up a lot of the confusions and to also properly classify the use. And we ask for your approval.
Thank you. Before I recognize you, Mr. Chairman, just a quick question. Rep. Angelo did make mention that to include language which clearly defines furniture, because which is a good point we brought up in our last committee meeting, and we're just asking if wanted to find out if you guys are okay with that we include new language into this bill that would clarify that, to include that definition.
That would be fine. Yeah, and I'll share it back with the board and the office for comments if that's okay with you guys.
Um, if you were to agree with that today, Mr. Alapuzo, we would be voting on an amendment today and be moving forward with this bill. So just for clarification, that you know that that's going to be the process today. So in essence, there's no time. Go ahead, recognize Mr. Chairman.
I think, if I may get the attention of the acting administrator and also board member Jang, I mean, it doesn't make sense if we're going to allow furniture store, right, on this permitted use and absent the definition of furniture stores.
Mhm.
I think you guys should agree that we add that definition along with the use, permitted use. I don't think you should circle back to your board to approve that. Because right now you're saying you're using retail stores as a basis to justify furniture store, right? I think there's a need to create that definition.
So just to clarify, under retail sales light, there is a it's there is a list of uses, uh, but the administrator has the authority to, within the best within the scope of what the developer is proposing to, provide services on, can properly classify it based on what the proposal is. So it has always been classified as, in the absence of this, under retail sales light or hardware stores, home and appliances.
Yeah, I think we should go beyond that and not continuously
Yeah.
give that option to the administrator. I think the best way to deal with uses is we have to have that definition in there,
Sure.
and not give that sole person to decide that whether it's within or it's not within. So
Hey.
I'm gonna propose to this August body that we insert that definition, and that we're letting you guys know right now that we're also gonna insert uh, provisions that says new furniture, and that we don't necessarily create furniture stores that are selling old and dilapidated furnitures within our zone
Okay.
areas. Thank you.
Okay.
Recognize Senator Magofnia. Then after we have Rep. Marissa Flores.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Chair JP, for clarifying that. I think it's important that we hear what the intention was from zoning office and the board when they made the decision to propose such legislation. Is the definition of furniture to include, is it for new furniture? Is it for refurbished or upcycled furniture? Because there's so many types of furniture, and I think it's so important that it's clearly defined in this proposed legislation to ensure that there are no misunderstanding and avoid any future, issues. So would you happen to know what was the clear intent of, the board and the office itself?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So right now, the table of uses doesn't have a specific use under furniture store, and so we've been classifying it under retail sales, which is a general. like, There's many things under retail sales. We wanted to have a specific use for retail store, so that we can use it for data.
So would you
um,
be in agreement then that if we define this, it would be defined as new furniture and not old or refurbished or upcycled furniture? I mean,
So
because there are some values to those,
yes,
right? Like especially
understood.
antique furnitures. And so we want to be mindful of those things. But for this particular legislation that, zoning is pushing and in support of, we want to be sure that we capture what the real intent is.
So I think if you're gonna add in the definition of new, then you're only restricting it to new furniture. So that means businesses that wants to open a furniture store they're not able to. So, I mean,
So I think that's
right?
definitely
You're just
a
restricting
discussion now that the committee has to.
But if we leave it under furniture store, then we're allowing.
Right, but we also
New,
want to
old.
make sure that we have some protection, right?
Mhm.
For businesses who are really selling quality furniture versus someone who just opens up a retail store and sells, secondhand furniture. We also want to make sure that, so,
I see.
I mean, the zoning think this through thoroughly to ensure that,
I think what we were thinking was just to have a furniture store so that when applicants come in to apply or to get a business license for a furniture store, we have a classification under furniture store. Now, if you want it to be just new furnitures, then I think that's something
I mean,
for the
I'll leave that
applicants. I
up for
mean,
discussion. By
Could-
them.
right?
Before I recognize you, Rep. Hold on. Rep. Flores, sorry, you raised your hand before that.
Thank you, Rep. Aldan, and thank you to Rep. JP because he's correct. We need to define that. And this I support, but it has to be defined because, again, I'm going to ask you one question. When these people come in to sell furniture, whatever it is, what is that? Do they just say, I'm going to open a furniture store? Do you guys say what kind of furniture? I mean, like, how does zoning now obviously get involved in this process? Because you have a lot of authority, obviously. So, furniture store, and your interpretation is if we say new, it's only restricted to new. So, take me through this process here. I'm a business owner. I'm going to open a furniture store. How does zoning, I guess, entertain my request?
Okay, so yeah, if you want to open a furniture store,
Mhm.
and we have the use
Mhm.
under furniture store, then
Mhm.
we'll take in your application process. Everything stays as furniture store. Now, if you were to restrict it by adding, say, just new furnitures, then
Okay.
right,
All right, I got it. But
then that's between you and the applicant.
So then
you
this
cannot
is-
sell old furniture because the law says only new furnitures,
right. No, the law with that can be many different things, right? But this is where I'm going to that. It's a standard. Zoning has an opportunity to create a new standard. Doesn't mean new furniture, doesn't mean just any kind. You guys have the authority and enough power to decide what that is, which I honestly, I'm having some issues with right now. But the standard is what I'm questioning. What is the standard? Because if you're going to say you're going to put a used furniture store next to Monica's furniture, that makes no sense. Right? What you're trying to do is build competition. Right? And when we say new, so maybe we don't use the word new, council. Maybe we can come up with something creative like high-end furniture, right? Would that be okay if we do that? If we say high-end furniture and then put in examples such as Kia, IKEA, whatever it is. I know it's not high-end, but I'm just saying for those poor people
Rep.
like
Flores,
myself,
Rep. Flores,
that's pretty much high-end for me.
Rep. Flores,
It
maybe
comes
we
with
can-
all the tools.
Rep Flores, maybe we can have Mr. Alipuzu respond to that. He's been raising his hand. Sorry.
Yeah, so I agree with the intent of the recommendations and the intent of this now committee, and I do agree with the inserting proper definitions. And yes, you guys are right. Yeah, we need to set standards. We can't put a used thrifty store right next to a high-end furniture stores. So I would have to support your recommendations to insert those definitions so that this now committee can move on and pass this proposed House Local Bill.
Thank you, Rep Flores, and thank you, Mr. Puzu. Rep Aldan.
Yeah. So my question on this furniture thing, right? So I mean, you're talking about a furniture that has already been manufactured, assembled, and shipped, right? That's what you're talking about.
Uh, it could even be locally assembled and manufactured here on island or the rest of the northern islands, as as long as it's furniture and it's up for sale and it's new. It it could
So
be
so I'm not allowed to sell it out of my garage.
that is correct, Representative.
Well,
Oban.
that's counterproductive because if I build custom made furniture, and somebody wants to buy it, they don't sell it anywhere else.
Mhm.
So you're restricting my entrepreneurial abilities or anybody else that builds custom made furniture to actually go out there and be an entrepreneur. You're limiting their skills.
Actually, I take it back. So through the home business permit process,
But this is furniture.
you can be allowed to to build furnitures and sell, but you have to conduct your sales off your residence, off premise.
How do you?
You have to deliver. You have to make proper our requirements within the home business uh, uh, provisions is that you would have to conduct all your sales outside of your residence. That's one way to address
Well, so you're saying that I
entrepreneurs.
can build it in my garage, but I cannot sell it out of my garage.
You gotta bring with how the requirements is written. You would have to conduct your sales away from home.
So it's a home-based business, right? And my garage is part of my home. But in order for me to sell it, I gotta take it somewhere else. Like I don't know. Let's say, for example, that I live in, Aslipto, and then I gotta bring it down to, you know, I don't know, lower base and sell it there.
So the whole intent of the home business permit or home business permit process is to give residences the opportunity to as entrepreneurs for to to create revenue off whatever trade or whatever it could be baking goods, it could be carpentry, building something, but to limit the impact of commercial use within these residential areas by causing traffic, having customers come in and out, frequent, the residential areas, resident village, zone village residential areas. But that's the reason why these provisions are inserted to allow, but also give and take. The applicant must agree that its sales has to be conducted off premise or off the residence.
I'm trying to wrap my head around this. I can build it in my house because it's a home business. It's custom made furniture, brand new, but yet I cannot sell it at my home business.
And again, the provisions, for home business, it's to limit further traffic congestions in residential areas. The home business permit is made available for interested entrepreneurs that cannot afford to pay for commercial space rental, or just can't afford to
And
open up a big business.
and that's practically about 98% of the population. So you're asking them that, yes, you can create a home business, but you cannot sell it out of your home because of traffic.
Is to preserve the characteristics of the village residential zoned areas.
Mr. Zhang, go ahead. You're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. As a businessman, this is one thing that really prohibits from business setting up a business in the CNMI. I think zoning office is really too strict, very, very strict. And this, I do not like it as a person. I think we should allow business to do the business. If they wanted to set up a used furniture store, let them do it. If they don't make money, I mean, government's not going to come over there and, hey, what happened? I mean, nobody put the gun in their head saying that you have to open up a business. It's their prerogative to open the business and do whatever they wanted to do it. But I think the zoning is too strict as far as when it comes to business. And it's very evident in the years that people have been in this business, they're leaving because of so much restrictions, so much hurdles. They don't want to do business in here. And so to me, I think zoning, I'm not speaking for all the board members, by the way. I think we should be more lenient on those people who wants to open up a business in the CNMI. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zhang. Vice Chair, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you again, zoning. Just have a quick question. It's during the SNILD session, there's one person that brought this up that they wouldn't comment on this specific legislation because there's an ongoing litigation. Is that ongoing litigation, would that affect this legislation, or would this legislation affect that ongoing litigation?
I'm not aware of the pending delegation, Representative Attal.
I'm assuming that this is the litigation regarding the annex and the AK buildup, because they brought up the one of the public comments and mentioned that they didn't want to comment on this specific legislation because of an ongoing litigation. And I do understand that that's an auto sale, but
No,
no.
this has nothing to do with it.
Okay, if that's the case, then maybe she should have made her comment during public comments in that session.
Yeah.
But with that being said, I'll take you guys as a word, since you guys are down there and are talking about, are probably facing this litigation right now, right? So,
Point of clarification.
Go ahead, Mr. Chairman.
I believe the person that made public comments was actually making comments on another House local bill which proposes to define automobile sales. That's a different local bill, and that's a local bill that will be coming very shortly to your committee. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Chairman. The floor is still open. Okay, with that, we're not able to deliberate under committee of the whole, so we're gonna move on to our next order of business. But before that time, Representative Komatsu, Angelo, and Representative or Chairman Sablan, do you guys have that definition for the council to work on?
I believe the proposed House local bill is already before the delegation.
Yes.
It just fairly met the 3 appearances as of yesterday's House session.
Okay.
So the minute we call, the minute I call for a delegation session, it will be reflective on the agenda. And then when I officially introduce that proposed legislation, I will ask the floor leader to refer it to this August body committee for deliberation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for that clarification. And with that said, we're moving on with our order of business, which is the most extensive part of our committee meeting today. Senate Local Bill 23-03 to amend the Nuisance Abatement and Blighted Property Maintenance Act of 2018 and for other purposes. I'll give the floor to our Senator Magofnia, to give us the committee some background on this.
Sidus Masi, Chairman. So, I'm not sure, Acting Administrator, if you've had a chance to read the comments that was provided to this body from the zoning office in opposition of my proposed amended legislation. And while I respect and understand where zoning is coming from, and again, I just want to be very clear, that it's not that I uh, don't support the existing law as it stands right now, because I do. I truly feel that, we need to have some order and structure in our community. And this is why this bill, this law is so important. However, given the situation and the condition that we are in at this time, and as I read further into the existing law and the penalties that are, that zoning can impose on the violators, that's what really prompted me to introduce this amendment. And it's really to protect our people, and do, again, I'm just gonna go straight into the penalties, because that's the core of this amendment. It was, if you look into Title 10, Division 3, and then subsections 30510 through 30516, it's pretty clear, the authority that zoning has. And I'm not gonna go into every detail of each penalty, but I just want to point to some of the penalties that I feel that the members should know, and the public as well as zoning. So if you look at subsection 30510 under orders and notice, and just skim through everything, go down to number 5, it says that the Commonwealth reserves the right to proceed with an action to hold the owner of the property personally liable for the cost of correcting the offending condition, to proceed against the property in rem, and or to place the lien on the property or on the other property of the owner. First of all, I have an issue with that, because why would you put a lien on the property that's in violation or the other property of the owner? I think, to address this, I think you should, they should just stick to the property that's in violation, and not overreach into other properties belonging to the owner. But that's another issue and concern to be discussed, and see if we can resolve that, because I don't think it's fair that you can put a lien on a property that is not in violation. You stick to the issue, which is the property that's violating the law. Secondly, if we go to subsection 30513 under penalties, again, I'm just gonna go down to the bottom where it says, provided further that the administrator may waive any penalties in cases where the owner is reasonably determined to be indigent or unable to comply with the chapter due to circumstances that excuse or justify the lack of compliance in the reasonable discretion of the administrator. I am so against this word discretion, because it can be abused in so many ways depending on who the authority is. And who's to say who the administrator is giving discretion, right? There has to be some standards and guidelines as to how the regulations are followed. And this word discretion to me is just very, very dangerous. So I asked, the committee, that we address this, to hopefully remove this discretionary authority from the administrator. If we move further down to 30515, it talks about any lien granted pursuant to this chapter shall be enforceable and continue for full force for 20 years after the date of the lien is recorded. Suste Marose, 20 years, that's almost like 2 generations. What are we trying to do to our people? If when you read the comments that came from the office of zoning, the zoning office, it talks about the opposition and the potential negative impact that this legislation is proposing to do. We want to talk about negative impact. What about the homelessness crisis that this will create should zoning start going out there and enforcing the blighted property and imposing these penalties and lien on the properties? We want to talk about negative impact. We want to talk about affecting the quality of life. I mean, does zoning really understand what they're writing when they put that in writing? Because once zoning goes out there and starts enforcing this will definitely have a negative impact on our community, our people. And like I said, I 100% agree with the law as it stands right now, but I really feel that at this time we need to make some amendments that is necessary to help our people. And all I'm asking, from this legislation is to the applicability of the law. At this time, I would like to see that zoning focuses their enforcement on the main roads. And it talks about discriminatory, but really, who am I discriminating in this legislation? I'm not saying let's not act on a specific class or group of people. That's discrimination. I'm saying let's focus our enforcement on the main roads where it's highly visible to our visitors and the safety of our community. So in no way am I, I'm not proposing that we repeal this law. I'm just saying, like, can we please focus our enforcement on the main roads, right? And take care of our blighted property. We have so many going from, and this is why I recommend that we start in the central area of the island, because that's where majority of the blighted properties are. I've got some calls from constituents that are in the backside of the island that zoning is already enforcing this blighted property. And why are we being selective when we go to these properties and start imposing these penalties? Why are we focusing on residents in the back when we have so many blighted properties along the road, the main highways? So I don't understand the opposition to this proposed amendment. I'm willing to work with zoning. I'm just saying now is not the time to go out there and start imposing these penalties on our people because of the ultimate result of putting liens on properties, and that's going to create an even bigger problem for our CNMI. So sorry, I don't mean to take it out on you guys. I'm just very, very concerned and passionate about what's going to happen to the people who are struggling as they are right now, to be able to even, resolve the issues that zoning will start imposing on them. We have so many residents that cannot even maintain their properties because of the financial condition that they're in. So I'm willing to this bill is not perfect in any way, but this is where I look to zoning for feedback and comment on how to improve it and make sure that the integrity of the law itself is still there, but just be a little bit more considerate and compassionate for the people who are going to be greatly affected by this. So thank you. I yield, Chair.
Thank you, Senator Margovna. Before I recognize you, Rep. Odan, maybe you just give the zoning officer a chance to respond. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Margovna, for those comments, and we do take note of them. We sympathize a lot of what our community is going through, and we do acknowledge the hardship that everyone is going through, both the residential site and commercial site. This proposed Nuisance Abatement and Blighted Property Maintenance Act was was first created in 2018, and it's been around. It's been around. It was circulated and discussed among other agencies. The adoption process has just been completed, with the law revision. And, comments, we received comments. Those comments were taken into consideration, although I do not have in-depth details as to what the board and the administrator uh, discussed regarding those comments. I'm here serving as acting capacity, and I will do my best to answer every question that you know I get asked to provide a response. But please bear with me if I can't answer them. Uh, I'll take note, and I will request if this SNOUD committee can allow me time to respond back by communicating with my superiors. Uh, Regarding the fee, I do acknowledge the concerns from the public and also everyone. And you are right, Representative Magovnia. We didn't kick off the full implementation of this act, but there is a section in the zoning law where we are addressing public nuisance. Maybe those are some of the specimens or cases you had mentioned, where it gets mistaken for this act being enforced. Um, those are cases where we would, as we conduct our village inspections and we see anything that is a public nuisance, whether it's a dilapidated vehicle, appliances placed in the front yards, overgrown vegetation, we take time to visit the homeowners or the residents or the tenants, and we educate them on having a cleaner premise, and we give them time, ample time. Some ask for months, we only expect days, but we deal with them, and we take a lot of great consideration because we see it out there. We are frontliners to witnessing all of this hardship, and it really breaks my heart to see anyone and our people go through this. Um, so there's a lot of consideration and time given for everyone to uh, correct these nuisances. And in regards to this act, uh, there are just some areas that I just can't provide you feedbacks on. Yeah, uh, and I will take note of them and request if I can, get back to you guys. Yeah, with a response.
Short recess. We are back into our committee meeting, and we are still under committee of the whole. And we were the last item on our agenda that was under discussion was Senate Local Bill 23-03. And as discussed, we will be possibly tabling this legislation for our forthcoming committee meeting for further dialogue with the whole board, hopefully with the whole board and yourself, Mr. Alipuzo. I know that you will be acting for the duration of October. With that said, is there a motion to table Senate Local Bill 23-03 for next? There's a motion to table Senate Local Bill 23-03, and it has been seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Senate Local Bill 23-03 is hereby tabled. And also to touch on House Local Bill 23-46, there was no pending action or pending motion for that. So, as our chairman first now alluded, that the bill will be referred to committee during our next now session. Senate Local Bill or House Local Bill 2346.
It's here on the agenda, but the vice chairman, what the vice chairman is alluding to, that has a delegation going on right now, is on the forthcoming House Local Bill, which is the automobile, further defining automobile sales.
Okay, so
But
would you like to dispose of this today? I know you guys don't have a definition before us right now to vote on. So, what
for
do
the
you-
interest of time, Mr. Chair, may I request that so that we define it very thoroughly, define furniture stores thoroughly, and that we don't rush this thing. May I request that we just go ahead and table it to for the further for next committee meeting.
Okay, there's a motion to table House Local Bill 23-46, and it has been seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. House Local Bills 23-45, 23-46, Senate Local Bill 23-03 is hereby tabled. And Mr. Alipuzo and your staff, thank you so much for your presence here today to answer the committee's questions. We appreciate your time. And you can go ahead, you're dismissed. And with that, members, sorry, can we just go ahead and, oh, okay. Short recess.
Zoning.
to our committee meeting. And with that, can I get a motion that we dissolve out of committee of the whole and get back into our plenary committee meeting? There's a motion to dissolve out of committee of the whole and back into our preliminary committee meeting, and it has been seconded. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. We're back into our plenary committee meeting, and just to inform the public that the actions we have taken is the committee has decided to table House Local Bills 2345, House Local Bill 2346, Senate Local Bill 23-03 for our next committee meeting, which we will be scheduling very shortly. Under that, under new business, we have none. Under item 5, miscellaneous, anything under miscellaneous, members?
Chairman,
Go ahead.
I know
Recognize.
that we're cut for time, but when you send the invitation out for those individuals to be present at the next meeting, again, I just want to be clear that, if you could invite the board, and then also to have them at their disposal, the resolutions that have been passed by, let's say, maybe 2020 forward, as part of the discussion as well. Thank you. I yield.
I recognize Rep. Oda.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just wanted to make sure that the people understand, this word lean. It's a very hard word. And as I'm looking at this, they were not, like as Senator Karina said, 20 years. 20. So let me just read the definition, the black law definition of what lean means, so that hopefully people get interested and, come up and make comments. The legal definition for the word lien is a legal right or interest that a creditor has in another's property, lasting usually until a debt or or duty that is secures is satisfied. 20 years is a long time for the government to take my land. If any government, wants to come and to take my inheritance from me because I have a busted car that I cannot afford to remove or a busted house that I cannot break down, I swear to God, the Second Amendment is going to come into play. Because that law right there, it makes that, it gives zoning, it sounds socialistic, communistic, and tyrannical. Who in the world gives you the right to come into my property and take my property away until I don't have a job, I'm crippled, I don't have the money, and you're going to take my land? Por favor, mangyari. So I hope that the people really understand and read these laws that, we're proposing. And I'm not a big fan of zoning, period. So, but there's more to be discussed about that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, sir.
Recognize.
Sorry, Chairman, but I think on the miscellaneous, we always try to use this as an educational dialogue between those in the viewing public and us here. So at any moment that the residential person is going into an agreement with any outside investor, period, always remember that it'll be nice if a lawyer could help you draft that, but always remember that you have the opportunity to insert clauses there that if you would like any kind of maintenance to be done at a certain period of time, include that. And then aside from that, if that is not done, what is the recourse? You have that opportunity to do that as a landowner. Now, if they don't want to negotiate with you, then there are other areas like Micronesia Legal Services that could look at that agreement. Okay, but there are solutions, and there's solutions for us to minimize now this problem. But every individual, including the businesses, have the opportunity to insert clauses in their land lease documents about the importance of maintenance of the property in which they're actually engaging with and exchanging with the potential investor. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield.
Thank you, Rep Flores. Rep Diego?
Thank you. Before we adjourn, just wanted to thank you, members, for a very fruitful discussion, and we can resolve this, and it's here. It's Senate Local Bill 2303. It really is our prerogative. Absent their opinions, nor concerns or comments on this, we can change that. Hopefully, I hope we can address this and the other three, pending bills on our next meeting sooner than later. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Rep Komatsu. And I did wanted to suggest to the members that Senate Local Bill 23-03 is the leeway. It opens the door. So if you have any an ideas of amendments that you like to insert, this is the perfect bill right now because it's before us. We're already moving on it. So if you have any suggestions or amendments, please have it ready before our next committee meeting. With that said, let's move on to our next order of business so that we can adjourn and our next committee or next meeting can take place. There's a motion to adjourn. It has been seconded. All those in favor to adjourn say aye. Those opposed say nay. Thank you, members. We are hereby adjourned. Thank you.